So August is notoriously the month in the homesteading world for overwhelm. And the garden starts overtaking you and you can't preserve the things fast enough. Hey guys, I'm Sarah from H is for Homestead, and today I'm going to show you how to preserve something every day to help you not get overwhelmed. Even if you don't have a homestead, this is the opportune month because farmers are also overwhelmed, and so you can get incredible deals on bulk produce that you can then preserve at its peak freshness and save it for later for your family all through the winter. I joined a challenge from Jessica over at Three Rivers Homestead called the Every Bit Counts Challenge. And basically the challenge is to preserve something every single day so that you are not getting overwhelmed but taking small action steps. And by the end of the month, you are so amazed at how much you can get done. So come along with me as I show you how to preserve things through canning, dehydrating, freezing. I'm doing tomatoes, jalapenos, cabbage, and even some milk. So let's go take a look.
The very first day, surprise, we're working on tomatoes. So we were given a ton of tomatoes, which was an answer to prayer because our garden has not really been doing super well this year. And so my task is first to can some spaghetti sauce. And I'm really excited about this because usually I just can tomato sauce and then it's very versatile that way, which is a blessing, but sometimes it's nice if my oldest daughter can throw something together for dinner, or if I just need something really, really fast, all I have to do is brown meat, throw in the sauce, boil some noodles, and dinner is served. So I'm working on some spaghetti sauce for this first day, and I think I ended up doing about 50 pounds of tomatoes, and I like to throw them in my roaster and cook them low and slow all day long, and then I will come back in with an immersion blender and kind of break it up a little bit. Usually I will end with just blending everything up in my Vitamix. It gets it really nice and smooth. I do not have a video of all of the things that I threw into this spaghetti sauce, but I'm going to read off the ingredients of what I used, and I really did just put every blessed thing in this roaster, and then I let it cook all day long, blended it down, and then put it into my jars. Okay, so the spaghetti sauce that I used is 25 pounds of tomatoes. I ended up doubling it, but one roaster can hold approximately 25 pounds of tomatoes. So in one roaster, this will make about 10 quarts of spaghetti sauce. 25 pounds of tomatoes, 5 onions, 4 large bell peppers. The recipe says red. Honestly, just use whatever color you want. And then 1 large green red pepper. And I actually sauteed those first in a pan so that I could soften them up. And I like the flavor better when they've been sauteed in butter for a little bit. And 4 6-ounce cans of tomato paste, 1/4 of a cup of liquid aminos. It's like a soy sauce alternative. It's a little bit healthier, but you could use soy sauce if you wanted. 3 tablespoons of, here's the word again, Worcestershire sauce, however you say that. 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar. I actually used sucanat because my daughter does better with that. 1/4 of a cup of salt, 10 cloves of garlic minced, 3 tablespoons of oregano dried, 3 tablespoons of basil, 2 teaspoons of red pepper flakes, and 2 bay leaves. Now, I did actually use regular fresh basil and not dried basil only because we had it in the garden. So dried or fresh, whatever you have available, make it your own. Let it cook all day. Then I pulled the bay leaves out and then blended it all up. To each jar, a quart-sized jar, I am adding either lemon juice or citric acid. You need to add that just to ensure that the acidity is correct. And I learned this week, actually, when I was doing a little research, that you need to add acid to tomatoes whether you water bath can or you pressure can. And I did not realize that. I thought you only had to use the acid for water bath canning. I did end up water bath canning because it's just easier. So to each quart-sized jar, I added 1/2 teaspoon of citric acid. If you were using lemon juice, you would need 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And then you can also throw 2 carrots into the roaster as it cooks and then pull those out. Supposedly, I don't know if it's like an old wives' tale or not, but supposedly that helps to pull the acid out. So I don't know, but I water bathed these for 45 minutes and then pulled them out, and everything sealed perfectly. So hopefully they will taste amazing. Guess we'll see. I forgot to mention too that my secret ingredient for stretching tomatoes in making tomato sauce or in making spaghetti sauce is zucchini. It is the vegetable that just magically makes all things better. I'm serious. I'm convinced because first of all, we needed to make this tomato sauce and the spaghetti sauce stretch as far as we could. But then also, my daughter struggles with acidic foods. And so, tomato sauce in general is a struggle for her. And so, adding the zucchini kind of cuts the acid a little bit. And zucchini just takes on the flavor of whatever you add it to. And so, when you blend it all up, you can literally not tell at all. The zucchini that I added into the spaghetti sauce and also tomato sauce, which I don't know if you caught that, but I actually was making spaghetti sauce and also making tomato sauce 2 different days, but I just put it together kind of in one because it's tomatoes. But it was like a ginormous zucchini, and you usually can't really do much of anything with those. And so I really just chunked it up with the tomatoes and put it in there. You could shred it if you wanted, but I figured if all of this is just cooking all day low and slow, I'm not even going to take the time to shred it. I'm just going to throw it in there, blend it up, and it worked perfectly. The next project I started working on was making sauerkraut. I have not actually ever made plain sauerkraut. I've made kimchi, which is, I guess, kind of like a Korean sauerkraut, I think. And I've also made what was called a taco kraut. And it's amazing on like nachos, tacos, anything that has those sort of flavors. And so I just wanted to make a regular plain sauerkraut for the health benefits. I wouldn't say that my family loves the taste of it, but they tolerate it well enough. And since it's such an incredibly healthy probiotic, gut health is really important for us. And so I wanted to have some on hand. I got this cabbage from a farmer down the road for an incredible deal. Incredible. I paid less than $1 a head for cabbage, which is just unheard of. So anyway, I am doing 7 heads of cabbage and just chopping them up really finely. I have a food processor, but unfortunately, it's a little bit annoying to work with, and you have to chop it so tiny to fit it in, and then a piece is broken because it's old and you have to hold the lid on. Anyway, it was just easier if I could just chop it myself. So I'm chopping all 7 heads of cabbage, and then for every 3 heads of cabbage, you want to use 2 tablespoons of a really good salt. I use Redmond real salt. Sprinkle it all over the cabbage, and you kind of just want to let the salt pull out the liquid so that you don't have to create a brine. And so I just left it in this really large pot with the salt on it, and I think it was all afternoon. And then I came back and kind of massaged the salt in every once in a while, and then I put it into this really large crock. And this is specifically made for fermenting things. And so it's a 3-gallon crock. So I filled it all the way up and even had a little bit extra, honestly. And so then I have these stone weights that can hold the cabbage down underneath the brine. And then around the top rim, you put a little bit of water so that it can seal. So it's actually still sitting in there, and it can sit in there. It really can just stay in there permanently because fermenting is awesome like that. It actually is a way of preservation and is one of the only ways of preservation that actually can increase the health benefits and not take away from the health benefits. So I love fermenting for that reason. But if you don't have a cool place to store it, then the refrigerator is the best. So after this has been sitting for about a week or so, I will just put it in 1/2-gallon jars and keep it in my fridge. Next, we are going to preserve some jalapenos by making probably our most favorite thing ever, and this is called cowboy candy. The recipe that I use is for 3 pounds of fresh jalapenos. So I'm just weighing out the jalapenos to start with. And then my 7-year-old here is writing tally marks for every 3 pounds that we get. So he enjoyed being a part of this for sure. As far as the recipe goes, here is what we did. It's 3 pounds of fresh jalapenos. And then you're going to create your brine. And so in a pot, you're going to put 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 6 cups of sugar, half a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of celery seed, 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Now, 6 cups of sugar is kind of a lot. We don't generally do a ton of sugar for a multitude of reasons, but this is the one that we kind of make an exception for. So I am still wanting to try to figure a way to use honey or stevia or something, but for the time being, we get an organic evaporated cane juice crystals from Azure Standard, and I use that. And we use this as a garnish, and so it's a little bit each time we have it. So it's one of those things where we just treat it literally kind of like candy, and we use it as a garnish on a lot of different things, but it's just a little bit each time. So anyway, once you bring all of those things to a boil, you're going to want to simmer it for 5 minutes and then add your jalapenos and return it to a hard boil for 4 minutes. And then just use a slotted spoon to fill your jars with jalapenos first, and then ladle your syrup over the jalapenos. And you can do half pints or pints. The pints worked just fine for us. We're a large family. But if you're a small family or you don't eat a lot of spicy things, or you wouldn't want it all that much, half pints would be probably better, just so that it doesn't go bad sitting in the fridge. But 1 pint, you water bath can for 15 minutes, and you're supposed to wait around 2 weeks to eat it to just let the flavors really meld. So we did pull out our food processor for this. And it was much easier. I will say, jalapenos can be dangerous. We felt like we were being fumigated or something, because the spicy fumes from cutting them and then cooking them, my daughter got a little bit on her hands and then accidentally rubbed her eyes. So just be careful when you're dealing with jalapenos, and use caution and gloves probably. But anyways, this is one of our favorites. We absolutely love this. The next thing we preserved were these little, I don't think they're actually considered cherry tomatoes. They're a little bit bigger. Maybe they are. I don't know the variety. They were given to us, but they looked to be the perfect size for dehydrating. And so I've actually heard of people just taking these little tomatoes, dehydrating them, or even large tomatoes, and then eating them like chips. Either that, or you can literally blend it up and add seasonings to anything. I was thinking of blending them up and adding them to sourdough crackers to give them maybe kind of like a Dorito flavor or something of that sort. I sprinkled Italian seasoning mix all over this. It's actually from Azure Standard, and it's what you're supposed to mix to make the actual Italian dressing. And it smells so good. And we only got 3 trays of this, but I'm really, really excited to try and see how we like it. Dehydrating is one of those things that kind of takes a long time, for sure, but it's totally worth it, and it looks so pretty. I don't know. I just love dehydrated food. So anyway, that is what we did the next day. All right, here we go. We're going to preserve some milk and make it into yogurt. This is obviously not long-term preservation for sure, but it does really help to use up some milk when you've got what you feel like as excess. So I've got 6 gallons of milk here, and anytime I make yogurt, I usually just skim the cream off the top because it's precious and too good for yogurt, I think. So I'm skimming the cream off the top here, and I'm going to make some butter with that. And then also save a little bit because we use it in coffee. And then we're wanting ice cream later on today, so I want to save a little bit out for ice cream as well. But the rest of it will be made into butter. So once I skim the cream, I'm going to take all of this milk. Actually, it's not quite all of this milk. It ends up being about 3 gallons. I think I had about a gallon and a little bit left over to save for ice cream and regular just regular drinking or whatever. So once I get all of the 3 gallons worth into my large pot, my stock pot, I am going to turn the heat on and just let it come all the way up to 165 degrees. Keeping an eye on it, stirring it every once in a while, but I'm busy around the kitchen doing other things and I'm just kind of letting it do its thing. Once it comes up to 165, you want to get it off of that heat and cool it down. Now, today, I really had a lot of other things going on and I didn't need to get it cooled down quickly. So I just pulled it off the burner and left it on the stove and let it come all the way back down to 110 degrees on its own. If you're in a rush, you could stick it down into like a sink full of cold water, just the pot, obviously not the, you don't want any of the cold water getting into the milk, but that can help to cool it down. Or you could pour it into something else that would make it cool down a little bit faster. But for me, it was fine that day. Once I came down all the way to 110 degrees, I took my freeze-dried yogurt culture, and I'm going to show a little clip here of what that culture actually looks like. And I pulled about half a cup of milk out to let it come to room temperature, and then sprinkled that starter, that yogurt culture starter, into the milk so that it could kind of bloom and awaken, since it's a freeze-dried culture. And I also keep it in the freezer, which is what the directions recommend. It's just good to get it kind of awoken in that half a cup of milk. And then I mix that half a cup of milk with the starter in it into the rest of the milk and stir it really, really, really well. And then since I have a dehydrator, I actually just pour the milk with the culture in it back into the 3 jars, and then I'm going to put those jars right into the dehydrator for about 12 hours and at 104 degrees. And I'm going to let it sit there. And then tomorrow, I'm actually going to strain it, and then we just sweeten it with honey and add a little bit of vanilla, and it's amazing. So, so good. Next, we're going to work on all of these peppers. We have some peppers that I bought from a local farmer down the road, and some peppers that were given us from a friend and their beautiful garden, and then a few peppers from our own garden. And so I'm going to preserve them just by freezing them. Last year, I dehydrated some peppers, but we still have actually just a little bit of those left. And I didn't feel like the way we like to use peppers, I didn't feel like that was the most helpful way to have them preserved. So I think we're just going to freeze them this year. And I want to have some as slices, and for fajitas or for anything that you would use sliced peppers for. And then I'm going to dice some as well. We have a pizza night. I don't know, maybe twice a month on Friday nights, homemade pizza. And so one of the pizzas we make kind of supreme, and we will put the peppers on. And so my goal with preserving is making it easy to use. And so it's not really easy for me to use if I've got like a huge bag of peppers all stuck together, and they get kind of icy if you just use a freezer bag. So I decided to pull out my vacuum sealer and just make it a little bit more effective to hopefully make these last a long time. So the slices, I'm going to put in individual like meal amount servings so that I can pull one bag out and we can use it at that meal, and I'm not having to worry about waste. Sometimes if the bag has too many in it, then I'm like, oh, I don't need all of these now, and then they ended up getting wasted or not used in the best way. And so I'm doing meal-sized portions for all of these. So the slices are in a little bit bigger sizes, and then the dices are a little smaller. We only do one pizza that's supreme. And so I want to preserve it so that I can just pull one out when it's time to have pizza, and we know exactly how we can use it. It's not wasting anything. It'll thaw a lot quicker. So I'm excited about this. I'm keeping track of how many I'm preserving. This is the first year I've done this, which seems ridiculous that I have not kept better track until this point. But I want to see how long things last us and see if I can make it a whole year. Some things I figured that out and other things I haven't. So I'm trying to be better about figuring out, okay, what do I actually need to preserve to make a whole entire year for us? To just try to make it most cost effective, but also I feel like these are so much healthier when you have produce that is in season for you. So anyway, that's how we're doing these peppers. And I'm really excited because they smell amazing. And I think this is going to work a lot better for us this year. that this encourages you to just put something up, to take the abundance that you have now and preserve it for later. Even if you've never done any kind of preserving, the freezer is a great place to start. So remember, anyone can homestead, and I'm cheering for you.